really pleased to have with me today Michelle Jackson. And Michelle is a long-time sufferer of fibromyalgia, or someone with fibromyalgia, I should say.
No, that's okay.
And Michelle is going to share with us about her experience with the pain clinic. I know many of you watching have been interested in what that experience is about, how you get into it, and all manner of questions. So Michelle's going to share some of her experience with us today. So Michelle, tell us, how did you get a referral to the pain clinic, and was the waiting list long?
So it's a very long story that spans 8 or 9 years. The very first time I had the pain clinic suggested to me, I had no idea what they were talking about. They might as well have said Harry Potter's castle or something. It sounded quite sort of weird. And that referral was because I had a frozen shoulder. And I think because of the fibromyalgia, the pain from that was excruciating. And so I was meant to be referred for that, but it just fell through the cracks. And so nothing happened at all until last year. And there was a locum at my GP's practice, and she said, "Oh, have you ever had the pain clinic suggested to you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, way back, but nothing ever happened of it." And she said, "Oh, well, I know one of the guys that is working there, one of the doctors. They are doctors in specialist pain medicine." And so I think she contacted him personally. So I think that helped a lot in getting me in for an appointment. And also maybe the fact that the system had dropped me through its cracks, and that I hadn't had anything done for 9 years since I got back to New Zealand. So once that got going, it was quite fast. They sent me a questionnaire online, and then nothing really happens until you've filled that out and sent that back, and that can be by post or by email. And then after that, I think it happened quite quickly following that, but again, it might be because of the two people knowing each other and worked together. I would say the waiting list is probably months long, but I can't say. I did look online, and it didn't actually say anything about waiting time, but GPs would know. So I think if you're on that waiting list and it's been a long time, I would actually be proactive and go back to the GP and say, you were looking into this and I have heard nothing, rather than leave it like I did and think, oh, well, maybe I didn't qualify. You don't know anything about why you have been chosen over someone else, or even what a pain clinic is. So I just looked it up, and there are about 5, I think, different pain specialist doctors that you can see, and it's in Dunedin. I'm just talking about the Dunedin branch.
The Southern DHB.
Exactly. And they're all seen at the Dunedin Hospital. It's really easy to find the office, and everyone was very friendly, and you don't know what you're going into. I mean, pain is such a sort of a elusive thing, and you're thinking, well, how can anyone really pin down what pain I have or why? And as the appointment goes on, it becomes clearer. So the appointment was for 2 hours, which seemed like a long time, but then there's a lot to unpack when you've got pain.
So that's the assessment process.
That's
2 hours initially.
Yes. And I would say, if you go to your GP and they don't suggest it, that you should suggest it if you're in chronic pain. And it said on the website, anything over 3 months of continuous pain, that you are proactive and you say, I am in this much pain and I really would like to see the pain clinic if that is something that you could arrange. And be really clear about how much pain you're in and how it's affecting your life, and things that you can't do, and things that spur out of it, like if you're a mum and you're in so much pain that you're shouting at your kids, and that it's having this knock-on effect on your marriage or on your work situation. I think, like anything, if you underplay your symptoms or your pain or whatever, you may not get anywhere. So I would say use all of the tools in your arsenal to say, hey, I really want this, and also to say, I am really wanting to get better. Because I think what I've learned from this whole process is, if you do get referred, you're only going to make progress if you do the work. So the work is basically yours. And if you are willing to look at every aspect of your life, even as tired as you might be, and the possibility that you might change things in your life, that you're willing to do that, I think your GP is probably more likely to put you through. I get the feeling that a lot of people might be put through and they don't turn up, or they turn up to one appointment and then they realize that actually this is going to be quite a lot of work, and then the pain doctor never sees them again. So for me, I am that person who is really fiercely determined to get better. And so I'm also a good little girl, and I do what I'm told. So when the doctor says A, B, and C are the things you need to do, I'm likely to really try my best to do those things. So I think if you have that mentality, I want to get better, I will do anything to get better, and I will listen, I will take advice, I will go away, and I will, as hard as it is, try and at least attempt some of those things.
So what sort of services were you offered after or during your 2-hour assessment?
Okay, so there wasn't really any other service provided by the DHB. It was just those appointments, and I've had to, and I've got another one coming. Between the first and second, I think there were 4 to 6 weeks, I can't quite remember, and then between the second and third there's going to be a few months. And I think because you've got to do so much personal work, it's not worth going back every week, because they send you away with a number of things that might help if you do them. So when I got there, there was a nurse there. I think she was a specially trained nurse in this area, and also the doctor, and they just started off by asking me a barrage of questions about everything to do with my condition, right back to the earliest things I could think of that caused pain, and almost like building a timeline of things that have happened, and so that they can get to the crux of the problem, if there is one. And there might not be just one thing, there might be several things. They asked me questions like, what are your levels of pain, and where is that pain, and what does it feel like? And I said, well, I've got fibromyalgia. And he said, no, I don't want you to use that term. First of all, because he hates the term, because it's meaningless. But second of all, because he wanted me to use my own words. So I'd have to say, okay, in my upper back, I have this feeling of weakness and collapsing in myself, and an aching pain when I have to sit up for too long. And so I'd have to really unpack those sensations and explain what it is that I'm actually feeling, because he doesn't know what I'm feeling, and he probably doesn't know what fibromyalgia feels like, and in fact, does it feel the same to you as it does to me? And so no labels, no terms, and that was quite hard. And then those general questions like, how much exercise are you doing? What forms of exercise are you doing? How much rest do you get? What are your sleeping patterns like? And yeah, so that was the questions bit, and that went on for a long time, and it was hard work answering all those questions. And even though we probably talked for an hour, I still felt like we had only just touched the tip of what is going on for me with everything, all of my past history, with getting glandular fever, with having numerous concussions, with having surgery, with having the frozen shoulder. And that's just a few of the things that are adding to this condition, or whatever you want to call it. Then they did a bit of a physical exam. It was by no means invasive. It was how high can you lift this arm, that arm? Do you feel any pain in your back when you lift your arms? That sort of just sort of flexibility and movement, range of movement. Things like they would press on various areas. They no longer do I think it was called a 16-point pressure test. I don't think that most of the people who are up to date actually do that anymore, because those trigger points tend to be sore on most people to a greater or lesser degree. And I think with fibromyalgia, you just tend to be sore all over. And because it's not muscles, it's nerves, and the nerve system is throughout your entire body, you just feel that pain and it sort of gravitates around. So there was a little bit of poking, and they also tested my reflexes, and got to see how much my body spasms whenever something like that is touched. That was quite interesting. I was a little bit embarrassed by that. Okay, so there was that aspect, and they talked about the impact of pain on my general life and how that, that affects what I do when I work. Then there was a big bit about medication, and that was a huge bit for me because I was on a lot of medication, and your GP knows an amount of information about medications, but they aren't trained as, say, an anaesthetist would be or a pain specialist would be, which these people are both of those things. And so he'd say, okay, so what do you want? I'm on gabapentin, which is meant to be a sort of a nerve painkiller. And okay, how many are you on? Okay, so if you're not on more than 7, it's not worth taking it if you've got this sort of nerve condition. So didn't know that. And then, okay, you should be taking most of that at night because that's going to help you sleep. All right, well, I was taking most of it in the morning. So that's not going to help stimulate me and help me wake up in the morning. And I'm on citalopram, which is an antidepressant. And he said, okay, when are you taking those? I said, at night. Okay, well, that's a stimulant. You should be taking that in the morning.
Right, so some fundamental stuff.
Yeah, fundamental things like that about the different types of pain medication that are available and the mix of painkillers. So, for instance, the citalopram doesn't work well with other pain medication, so I probably shouldn't be on that. He hasn't taken me off it yet. So everyone's pain medication thing will be different than mine.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was so great to hear someone who really knew their stuff saying, you know what, what is it, a muscle relaxant? Don't bother taking that. That's not what's wrong with you. And ibuprofen, yeah, it's going to have a real effect on your body long term. Whereas paracetamol, that's going to help you both physically and emotionally. Didn't know that. So
it sounds like it's a really comprehensive.
So comprehensive with the medicines. That was great. He talked about one of the most important things is he talked about the central pain sensitization, which is when you have a whole lot of things going on, they all feed into one sort of system whereby it elevates your pain levels. And that's, he really stressed that because I hadn't talked about that. I had actually known about it, but he really asked about that. And then he gave me a sheet at the end of the session. I went out and they talked about me. And then I came back and he gave me a summary of consultation, which had the things that we talked about and the things that he'd like me to work on in terms of diet, in terms of what he wanted me to do more of. So that was the session. It was good. It was long and I was exhausted afterwards.
So it sounds like they went over things with you with fine-tooth comb.
Absolutely.
And
holistic.
Very comprehensive and holistic. That's cool. So
absolutely.
What were the most beneficial things from your experience at the pain clinic?
So the change of meds, definitely. I've done that. He changed me from nortriptyline, which is an old painkiller. An old antidepressant, which is used now for pain. And he changed me from one to another, which is more beneficial for pain and more beneficial for sleep. So that, those sorts of things, the changing of the meds have been great. He stressed to me the importance of walking or fill in your favorite sport there. But the walking is good because you're outside. So I think for me, maybe going to a gym is not the answer. Whereas being outside in nature, that holistic thing, getting out, saying hello to people and their dogs, that sort of thing. And also gentle, but also more. So I said, I'm probably doing 30 minutes a day. He said, no more. He didn't say how much more, so I try and do 45 minutes. Mindfulness, he didn't call it that. I don't think he liked to give it a title. I've always called it meditation. And so he gave me this thing where for 30 minutes, you sit or lie and you concentrate on the pain that's in your body. And just for a moment, you think about it, you allow it to be there, you don't push it away, you name it, give it a color, give it a texture. And then most of the time you spend thinking about all those areas of your body that don't hurt, which is nice. When I went back again, I said, what do you call it? He said, I call it mindfulness. So that's a very common term. It's
very one that people understand, isn't it?
That's right. A very specific way of being mindful and thinking about the pain. I think a big thing for me was realizing that I can't expect anybody else to do the work. If I want to get better, it's me going out and walking, even regardless of the crap weather, me doing the meditation. He said 2 half-hour sessions a day for 2.5 months, and you'll start to see some improvement in pain levels. Okay. And I have not followed through on that.
It's a big commitment.
Huge.
Big commitment. Which concepts and skills that you're introduced to have you continued to integrate into your everyday life then?
So the walking, except for the sleety days this week, I haven't been out a couple of days during the sleet and snow, but the walking, and that's really helping. I bought some trekking poles, walking poles, and it helps me to remember to stand up straight, helps me to posture-wise. The mindfulness, which I try and do at least once a day. The change of meds, trying to get to bed earlier. One of the things he said was just rubbing your skin, rubbing the nerves. And you can use lotions or whatever. But no, he said, no, just the touch. Of course, someone else doing it is better again. And I've incorporated into my life going for a massage every week or every fortnight. And having someone else touch my whole body and massage those nerves and try and bring them down from that heightened sort of elevated feeling of all the time. Aromatherapy I've added into my life using essential oils, so at night to calm me down, and in the morning to stimulate. Activity regulation was a term I learnt, which is basically just pacing yourself and doing something and then allowing yourself to have a great big rest afterwards. And that's really important for anyone with any condition like this. Labelling things as work that I normally would go, I've done nothing today, but then it turns out I actually did 2 loads of washing and the vacuuming and fed the chickens and the cat. And that actually, if I was to label that as work, if I was to label the meditation as work and the walking as part of my work day, and allowing myself to get better under new rules, and listening to the pain in my body and allowing it to speak to me. So if my shoulder is hurting, I say to it, what have I done? How much guitar playing have I just done today? And how much hammering in the chicken coop have I done? And having more of an awareness of what I've actually been doing to my poor body that has, and also like psychologically, have I just had a really intense phone call with a friend about our pain, and then I'm sort of jittery and I feel like adrenaline is running through my body. So that awareness of pain.
So how would you rate your experience at the pain clinic, and would you recommend it to the service to someone else with chronic pain?
Okay, I would rate it as excellent and really worthwhile. I suppose it matters who you get and where you are at your stage in your journey. I think that 9 years ago, I probably wasn't ready to say all these things to you. If I'd gone to the pain clinic and they'd say, you've got to go out walking for 45 minutes and you've got to meditate, etc., I probably would have gone, no, I'm not there. So if anyone who really seriously is fed up with their own situation and wants to get better, I would recommend that to them. If you're self-motivated, if you are ready to look at every aspect of your life, if you'll do anything to get better, if you've got to that point where you're just tearing your hair out and you know that for your family you need to get better, or for your work, or just for yourself, if you're willing to prioritize your health then yeah, go. And you'll hear people go, oh yeah, well, I read that I should do this, but actually I can't do that. I can't do that because I've got children. I can't do that because I've got a job. Actually, you probably can't keep going unless you do look at the way that you're running your life. I'm lucky I don't have children, actually. That's a whole nother ballgame that I can't speak to. But I imagine that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 children who have needs, and you are the one they go to. It's going to be a whole different kettle of fish. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Michelle. It's been really good to have a chat to you, and I'm sure other people will be interested in your experience. And people, if you are looking for that next step, that next stage of advice and support with your chronic pain, then we would encourage you to have a little chat to your GP and request a pain clinic referral. They are in each DHB. The quality of service, I think, is a little bit variable, but we would encourage you to give it a go.
Absolutely.
So that's it from us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, bye.